Let's start with this. Over the past 2 months, Anthropic did two things that, on the surface, point in opposite directions. First, it released its most capable model ever, a system powerful enough that the company built classifiers to police how it gets used. And at the same time, it also invested in the infrastructure around that model, specifically where the model lives, what it remembers, and how you edit its work. So which is it? Is the frontier still about building a smarter brain or about something quieter, further from the benchmark charts? For years, the assumption in this industry has been simple. The smartest model wins. And I think these latest releases from Anthropic are the clearest sign yet that the assumption is incomplete and that Anthropic is quietly building towards a different bet entirely. So today, I want to show you that bet. We'll talk about all the latest releases from Anthropic and what these releases imply for where Anthropic believes this is all heading. Let's get into it. All right, so here is what we'll be covering today. 4 changes Anthropic shipped in the last 2 months. And by the end, you'll see they add up to one single bet viewed from 4 different angles. So first, the agent has left your laptop. Cowork moved to the cloud, and we'll talk about what that even means. Next, the model underneath. Fable 5 and a safety design that reveals more than the benchmarks do. From there, the compounding advantage, why memory of all things may be the most strategic release of the bunch. And finally, what it means for you. Because if these tools are heading where I think, the skill that matters is quietly changing. Let's get into it. Now, if you don't know me, my name is Sunny. I'm a serial founder now on my 4th startup. I'm a former senior engineer at Bloomberg and Shopify, and currently an adjunct professor at Columbia Business School, where I teach tech and AI. Look, my goal for today's video, and really all my videos, is to help you make sense of this ever-evolving AI landscape. Let's get started with our first step. Okay, so let's start with the most visible change. On July 7th, Anthropic made Cowork, its agent that actually does work for you, available on web and mobile, and actually moved its sessions to the cloud. Cowork used to live on your desktop. It ran on your computer, and when you closed the lid, it stopped. Now the work runs on Anthropic's servers, and your sessions and files are saved to your account and follow you across devices. You can begin something at your desk and check on it from your phone later. Notice the trade, though, that they were willing to make. The desktop app is still the more capable surface, direct access to your files, your browser, your machine. On web and mobile, that access is slightly narrower. So the cloud version is not more powerful. It is actually just more present. And Anthropic decided that presence was worth more than power. And to me, that is a real statement of belief, because it says the company thinks that the value of an agent is not how much it can do in one heroic session at your desk, but how continuously it can be there, running while you're away, waiting on your phone, picking up where it left off. Hold on to that idea of continuity, though, because the next change is what makes that continuity actually matter. Now let's turn to the model underneath all of this. On June 9th, Anthropic released Claude Fable 5, which it calls its most capable widely released model. Built in its own words for the most demanding reasoning and long horizon agentic work. And here's a line I want to double click on here. The longer and more complex the task, the larger Fable's advantage. But the most revealing detail isn't the capability, it's the safety design. Fable has a sibling, Mythos, and by Anthropic's own framing, they are the same underlying model. The safeguards, though, are what distinguish the two. We talk about aligning the model as if safety is trained into the model itself. Here, alignment is actually a separate layer of classifiers wrapped around the shared core. Taking that layer off, you get Mythos, restricted, of course, to approved users. And when those classifiers flag a sensitive request, the system doesn't refuse it. It actually just quietly hands the response to an older, less capable model, like Opus 4.8. So for the riskier topics, you get the weaker model. Now, here is my broader take, though. Look at what Anthropic chose to guard. Alongside cybersecurity and biosecurity, one of the protected domains is distillation. In Anthropic's words, they've identified large-scale attempts to extract or distill Claude's capabilities to train competing models, competing open source models. And the requests flag as distillation will actually fall back to Opus 4.8. So they built a classifier to stop you from copying the model. The thing now worth defending isn't how the model is used, it's the capability itself, treated as an asset someone might steal. And that tells you where the value has quietly moved. So moving on to the third point, we now have an agent built for presence and a model built for long autonomous work. Now the piece that connects them, and it's the one I'd least expect to call strategic. On July 10th, Anthropic redesigned Cowork's memory. It moved from rough daily summaries to a set of individual categorized entries that Claude reads and updates as you work. So this is a good moment to point out why that matters more than it sounds. Listen, a smarter model is a capability anyone with enough compute can eventually match. But an accumulating, structured understanding of you, your projects, your preferences, the context of your work is not something a competitor replicates by training a better model or a system. It's built slowly, brick by you through use. And the longer you use it, the more it costs you to leave. So in my view, this is the quietest and most durable advantage in the whole set of updates. Now pair that with an updated aim at enterprises, new controls letting admins decide which models their people can use and at what effort level, and the shape of the strategy becomes clear. Anthropic isn't just chasing the smartest system. It's building one that is present, that remembers, and that a cautious organization can actually govern. But there is a consequence to all of this that lands on you, which is the last thing I will cover. So let's turn to you. Put the pieces together. An agent that runs in the cloud while you're away, a model built to work for hours on its own, and a memory that compounds. The work these tools produce is getting longer, more autonomous, and less supervised, which means the valuable human skill isn't producing the first draft, it is actually in directing and reviewing what the machine produces. Anthropic clearly sees this too. One of the quieter June updates lets you edit a Cowork draft in place by highlighting the passage and describing what you want changed. And it's made right there. So that is a tool built for an editor, not necessarily someone who is going to write the whole thing. And I think it's pretty clear here. As generation becomes cheap and continuous, judgment becomes the scarce thing. Of course, we know this. So the person who can read 3 pages produced from an agent overnight and catch the one buried assumption that's wrong becomes more valuable, not less. So the habit to build is deliberate review. When an agent hands you a long piece of work, don't skim it for whether it reads well. Read it for what it quietly changed, the caveat that vanished, the may that became a must, and steer it section by section rather than regenerating the whole thing and hoping. You are becoming the editor-in-chief, so we want you to start practicing like one. All right, so let's recap. In 2 months, Anthropic put its agent in the cloud so it can be everywhere. It released a model built to work long and on its own. It redesigned memory so the relationship compounds, and it gave you tools to edit rather than write. Read separately, they are a changelog, but read it together, they are a bet that the future isn't a smarter chatbot you question, but a persistent, capable, governed agent that works autonomously and quietly gets to know you. So here's my candid assessment. The smartest model wins era isn't necessarily over, but it is no longer the whole story. Presence, memory, and trust are becoming as consequential as raw intelligence. And that's a more interesting and honestly a more human contest than the benchmark race suggested. So here's your assignment this week. Take one real task you'd normally do yourself, hand it to an AI agent, and practice being its editor. Not its author, but its editor. Read what it produces for what changed, not just whether it's fluent, and notice how it feels to direct instead of doing. That is a muscle that the next few years will reward. Now, if you stuck around till the end of this video, I appreciate you. I will see you on the next one.